Right now, as we sit here in April 2026, the American economy is hemorrhaging. It's not a slow leak, it's a $500 million a day bleed. Since the February 28th strikes on Iran, the global energy map has been set on fire, and the math of your daily life just broke. For the first time in modern history, the Strait of Hormuz, the literal jugular vein of the world's energy, has been choked shut. We're watching Brent crude sit at $107 a barrel, while just weeks ago we were coasting under $80. But here's the trap. Most people are staring at the gas pump, watching that $4.10 national average, and they think that is the crisis. They think if they can just budget through the commute, they've survived the storm. They are dead wrong. What you see at the pump is actually the smallest, most visible piece of a much larger collapse. There are 5 distinct waves of price increases heading toward your bank account right now. Each one is larger, more invisible, and more destructive than the last. One wave is hitting your grocery bill by next Tuesday. Another is baking a massive food price spike into the fall of 2027. And the final wave? It's currently paralyzing the Federal Reserve, meaning those interest rate cuts everyone promised you for 2026, they just evaporated. By the time the final wave hits your mortgage and your retirement fund, the window to protect yourself will be slammed shut. Today, I'm breaking down the data from the April 2026 IMF Outlook, why your biological threat assessment is actually lying to you right now, and the 3 specific moves you need to make before the second wave lands. If you're running the same financial software you were using in 2025, you're driving into a wall. Let's look at what's actually happening.
To understand why your current budget is a ticking time bomb, we have to look at the hard data coming out of the April 2026 Economic Bulletin. The International Energy Agency is now calling this the greatest energy security challenge in history. We aren't just talking about a price hike. We are talking about 10 million barrels a day of global supply simply vanishing because of the Hormuz blockade. In the U.S., we're currently cushioned by our own reserves, but that protection is paper-thin. In California, you're already seeing $5.80 a gallon, and the national average is climbing toward $4.20. But the real killer isn't the car you drive. It's the fuel that powers everything you buy. Diesel has surged 36% in a single month to nearly $5.50 a gallon. Diesel is the blood of the 2026 economy. Every 18-wheeler, every cargo ship, and every piece of heavy farming equipment runs on it. When that blood gets more expensive, the cost of existence goes vertical. The average American household is suddenly looking at an extra $15 to $20 a week just to keep the tank full. On its own, your brain files that under annoying but manageable. You tell yourself you'll just skip a few lattes and you'll be fine. That filing is a psychological trap called mental accounting. We unconsciously separate our money into invisible buckets: gas, groceries, entertainment, savings. When the gas bucket overflows, we don't calmly redistribute our wealth. We emotionally react. We slash the things that feel optional: the gym membership, the weekend trip, or the extra $200 you were supposed to put into your 401k this month. But as the chief economist at the National Retail Federation just confirmed, gas is only the first wave. Your survival instinct is telling you to hunker down for a storm, but it hasn't realized yet that the storm is actually a 5-part tsunami. If you only prepare for the first wave, you are going to be completely underwater by the time the third one hits.
The reason you're feeling a false sense of security right now is that you're looking at a snapshot, a single frame of a high-speed accident, but the economy is watching the whole movie. To survive April 2026, you have to move beyond the headlines and understand the 5-wave sequence currently in motion. This isn't just one price hike, it is a rolling series of compounding shocks. If you wait until the 5th wave hits your bank statement to adjust your strategy, you haven't just lost the game, you've already been liquidated. Wave 1 is the fuel shock. You're already living through this wave. It's the most aggressive because it's the most immediate. Currently, the national average for gasoline has surged to $4.10, with diesel crossing the $5.50 mark in key logistics hubs. But here is what the average investor misses. According to recent data from the Energy Information Administration, or EIA, for every $10 increase in the price of a barrel of crude, the U.S. economy effectively loses about 0.2% of GDP growth due to reduced consumer spending. With Brent crude currently testing the $115 level, we aren't just looking at a pricey commute, we are looking at a massive, involuntary tax on the American worker. In the grand scheme of your net worth, however, Wave 1 is just the scout. It's designed to grab your attention and keep you anchored to the gas pump while the rest of the army sneaks around your flank. Wave 2 is the perishable shock, and it's landing this week, the rapid repricing of everything that has a heartbeat or a shelf life of less than 14 days. Watch your grocery bill specifically for produce, meat, and dairy. Why now? Because diesel powers the cold chain. Unlike dry goods that can sit in a warehouse waiting for fuel prices to stabilize, perishables must move. Research from the Food Marketing Institute suggests that transportation accounts for nearly 25% of the shelf price of fresh produce. Furthermore, retailers are in a unique position of weakness in April 2026. Over the last year, most major chains have exhausted their cash reserves, absorbing agentic AI integration costs and the lingering effects of the 2025 tariff hikes. A recent report from Moody's Analytics indicates that retail margins are currently at their lowest point in a decade. They simply have no fat left to chew. When their shipping costs go vertical, your grocery bill does too, immediately. Wave 3 is the fertilizer lag. The invisible wave. This is the wave that should genuinely keep you up at night because it operates on a time-release mechanism. It's almost invisible until the damage is done. Fossil fuels, specifically natural gas, account for up to 80% of the variable costs in nitrogen fertilizer production. With the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed, the International Food Policy Research Institute, or IFPR, estimates that 1/3 of the global fertilizer trade has been paralyzed. Farmers are making their planting decisions for the next cycle right now. They're paying a massive premium for nutrients today, which means the corn, wheat, and soy hitting the market in September and October 2026 is being pre-inflated as we speak. By the time you feel this shock at the dinner table this fall, the world will have moved on to other news, forgetting that the seeds of this particular crisis were planted in the soil of April. Wave 4 is the logistics tax. If you were planning a summer 2026 vacation, the math just broke. Jet fuel prices have surged 85% since the February strikes, creating a liquidity event for the airline industry. Unlike gasoline, which fluctuates daily at the pump, airlines operate on complex hedging models. According to the International Air Travel Association, or IATA, most carriers have moved to dynamic fuel surcharges to protect their 2026 earnings calls. This means that even if a diplomatic solution is reached tomorrow and oil drops back to $70, those ticket prices aren't coming down. Why? Because the rockets in feathers effect in economics dictates that prices shoot up like a rocket but drift down like a feather. The airline industry has already baked in these high costs for the next 2 quarters to recoup the losses they're taking today. Your cheap summer flight is now a luxury asset. The final wave is the interest rate freeze, and this is the final blow, and it's the one that changes the trajectory of your entire life. Coming into early 2026, the market consensus and the Federal Reserve's own dot plot pointed towards a series of rate cuts down towards a 3% neutral rate. That dream is officially dead. With energy-driven inflation spiking, the Fed is in a stagflationary trap. Research from the Brookings Institute suggests that when energy shocks collide with low unemployment, the Fed is historically forced to prioritize inflation killing over growth stimulus. If they cut rates now, they pour high-octane gasoline on the inflation fire. If they hike, they risk snapping an economy already buckling under the weight of $115 oil. Analysts at Goldman Sachs are now projecting that the neutral rate won't be reachable until mid-2027 at the earliest. This means higher for longer is no longer a threat, it is the 2026 reality. If you were waiting for a mortgage drop to buy a home or a rate cut to refinance your debt, the floor just moved significantly higher. By the time the general public recognizes this full picture, 4 of these 5 waves will already have washed away their discretionary income and decimated their purchasing power. You cannot wait for certainty. In a movie this fast, certainty only comes after the credits roll. You have to see the sequence, anticipate the velocity, and move your money before the 5th wave locks you in place.
So let me ask you this. When you first heard that oil prices spiked because of the February 28th strikes, how many of these downstream effects did your mind immediately connect? Maybe 1? Maybe 2? If you missed the rest, you're completely normal, and in April 2026, that normalcy is exactly what the market is counting on. There is a well-documented phenomenon in behavioral psychology called anchoring bias. When you encounter a complex, multi-layered problem, your mind doesn't process every layer simultaneously. It grabs the most visible data point and uses it as a stand-in for the entire situation. Right now, for most of us, that anchor is the number on the gas station sign: $4.10, $5.30, $5.80. That number has become your proxy for the entire economic impact of this war. And because gas prices feel annoying but survivable, your internal threat assessment files the whole crisis under temporary inconvenience. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 has dropped nearly 7% from its January peak, and the Nasdaq is sliding deeper into correction territory, down 10%. Your Magnificent 7 tech stocks just lost over $1 trillion in market cap in a single week. When you see that red in your portfolio, something happens in your nervous system. Your amygdala, the part of your mind responsible for threat detection, starts screaming one word: sell, get out, protect what's left. This is loss aversion at work. Research shows that the psychological pain of losing money is roughly twice as intense as the pleasure of gaining it. A $5,000 loss in your 401k doesn't feel like a $5,000 problem. It feels like a $10,000 emergency. Your nervous system is running ancient software designed to survive predators, and it's trying to apply that to a modern financial system. But here's the reality of April 2026. History shows that the people who act on that panic sell-off always lock in their losses, while those who stay the course capture the recovery. In fact, if you miss just the 10 best trading days in a cycle, your long-term returns can be cut in half. You aren't irrational for feeling this fear. You're just running the same mental software as everyone else. But recognizing that software is the first step toward overriding it. You have to stop looking at the anchor of the gas price and start looking at the structural shift underneath. Because while you're waiting for things to go back to normal, the market is already pricing in a brand new reality.
Now, let's talk about what you can actually control. The difference between the people who come out of this 2026 shock stronger and those who come out weaker has almost nothing to do with what happened, and everything to do with what they did while the waves were still crashing. The first rule: do not panic sell your investments. Every instinct you have is telling you to move to cash, but moving 100% to cash right now doesn't eliminate risk, it just replaces market volatility with guaranteed inflation risk and a massive opportunity cost. You cannot capture the upside of the recovery if you fled during the downside. History shows that the best trading days and the worst trading days clustered together. If you're sitting on the sidelines waiting for a certainty, you're waiting for a train that has already left the station. Second, you need to pressure test your 2026 emergency fund. Financial advisors have always said 6 to 12 months, but in this high interest rate environment where the top high yield accounts are paying over 4%, your cash cushion is finally working for you. Think of this fund as an insurance policy against your own fear. When you know you have a year of runway, you don't make desperate, expensive mistakes. You're not watching the news feeling panicked, you're watching the news feeling prepared.
Third, you must audit your specific energy exposure. This is personal. If you're commuting 50 miles a day, your life tax just went up. If you're a small business owner moving physical goods, your shipping costs just jumped. Don't wait until the fourth or fifth wave hits your bank account to adjust. Cut the discretionary spending now, the luxuries that your survival instinct is already flagging, and redirect those dollars toward your financial moat. Finally, if you are investing on a regular schedule, do not stop. This feels counterintuitive when the market is red, but this is exactly how wealth is built. When you invest the same amount every month, you are automatically buying more shares when prices are low. Years from now, the shares you bought during this April 2026 conflict will likely be some of the best performing assets in your entire portfolio. The households that fare best in these cycles aren't the ones with the highest incomes, they're the ones with the fastest response time. They make the small, unglamorous moves, trimming the budget, fortifying the savings, and maintaining the discipline before the pressure becomes unbearable. You're watching this because you're paying attention. Most people won't think about this until their bank account is already empty. Your window is open right now. You've navigated uncertainty before, and you'll navigate this too. The only question is whether you'll let this disruption make your decisions for you, or whether you'll make them yourself. If this changed how you're looking at the next 6 months, drop a comment and tell me which move you're making first. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. The 2026 story isn't over, and neither is your window to get ahead of it.